The Jeep rolled slowly through the mud-choked road, its headlights dimmed by thick canvas covers. The front lines were closer than planned. Artillery rumbled in the distance, steady and impatient. General Dwight D. Eisenhower adjusted his coat and stepped out, expecting a routine inspection. He had come to check reports, nothing more, or so he thought. Ahead, a group of soldiers stood at ease. Their uniforms were dusty, their faces sharp with focus. In the center stood a man with a polished helmet, revolvers resting confidently at his sides. Eisenhower stopped. Something felt off. The man didn't rush forward. He didn't salute immediately. He simply watched, eyes steady, posture calm, like someone who owned the battlefield. Eisenhower turned to his aide and spoke quietly. "Who's commanding this sector?" The aide hesitated. "Sir, General Patton is operating in this area." Eisenhower looked back at the man again. The stance, the confidence, the way nearby officers deferred without being told. He stepped closer. "Soldier," Eisenhower said, voice firm but controlled, "are you aware who you're standing in front of?" The man finally smiled, just slightly. "Yes, sir," he replied. "I believe I do." There was a pause, an uncomfortable one. Eisenhower narrowed his eyes. "Then why," he asked, "are you dressed like you just walked out of the middle of a charge?" The man's smile widened. "Because, sir," he said evenly, "that's exactly where I came from." Only then did Eisenhower realize the truth. He wasn't inspecting a front line. He had walked straight into Patton's war. Eisenhower studied the scene again, slower this time. The road behind the muddy commander was alive with motion. Trucks rolling forward, radios crackling, soldiers moving with practiced urgency. This wasn't a unit waiting for orders. This was a unit already executing them. Eisenhower pulled a folded map from his coat and opened it carefully. According to headquarters, this sector was supposed to be quiet. A holding line, minimal contact. He pointed at the paper. "This position," Eisenhower said, calm but firm, "isn't scheduled for forward movement until tomorrow." The muddy general leaned closer, barely glancing at the map. "Yes, sir," he replied. "That's what the map says." There was no apology in his voice, no hesitation, just a statement of fact. Eisenhower looked up sharply. "Then why," he asked, "do I see vehicles advancing right now?" The general finally turned fully toward him. "Because the enemy isn't reading our schedule," he said, "and waiting would only give them time." For a moment, the road noise seemed to fade. An aide shifted uncomfortably. Someone coughed. A distant engine backfired. Eisenhower closed the map. "You're pushing beyond your assigned limit," he said. "Yes, sir," the general answered again, "by several miles." "And you're confident?" The muddy commander nodded once. "We're already there." That answer landed heavier than any argument. Eisenhower looked past him, down the road, watching another column move forward without pause. Slowly, something changed in his expression. This wasn't recklessness, it was momentum, and it was already in motion. Eisenhower didn't raise his voice. That was what made it unsettling. He stepped closer to the muddy commander, close enough now to see the dried dirt on his gloves, the scuffs on his helmet, marks that didn't come from headquarters. "If you're wrong," Eisenhower said quietly, "this advance puts thousands at risk." The road behind them never stopped moving. Engines growled, radios clicked. Orders were passed without urgency, only certainty. The commander listened carefully. Then he nodded once. "Yes, sir," he said. "It does." Eisenhower waited for more. An explanation, a defense, something. Instead, the man added, "But stopping now would put more at risk." That answer drew a sharp breath from one of the aides. Eisenhower folded his hands behind his back and looked down the road again. He noticed details he hadn't before. The spacing between vehicles, the calm discipline of the soldiers, the way no one looked confused or rushed. This wasn't chaos, it was control. "How far ahead are you?" Eisenhower asked. The commander answered without checking anything. "Farther than the reports say, and farther than the enemy expects. And if headquarters orders you to halt?" The muddy general met his eyes. "Then I'll halt," he said. A pause. "After securing what we've already reached." For a long moment, Eisenhower said nothing. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled, just slightly. "Very well," he said. "Show me." And with that, the inspection turned into something else entirely. The Jeep moved forward without ceremony. Eisenhower sat in silence as the column rolled on, tires cutting deep lines into the wet road. No one had ordered a pause. No one had slowed the advance just because he was there. That alone told him something. They passed units already dug in, positions that, according to the map, shouldn't have existed yet. Engineers were laying temporary bridges. Signal teams were extending lines farther east. Every piece fit together like it had been planned weeks ago. But Eisenhower knew it hadn't been. It had been decided. He leaned forward slightly. "How long have you been moving like this?" The muddy commander didn't look back. "Since the moment the opening appeared," he said. "We didn't wait to see if it would close." Eisenhower watched soldiers wave the convoy through without confusion. No hesitation. No surprise at seeing him. They weren't improvising. They were ahead. The Jeep slowed at a small rise. Beyond it, Eisenhower saw something that made him exhale slowly. Fresh tracks, recent movement. Signs that the line everyone believed to be stable was already behind them. He finally understood. Headquarters wasn't late. It was behind reality. Eisenhower turned to the commander. "These reports," he said carefully, "will shock a lot of people." The muddy general nodded. "They usually do." For a long moment, Eisenhower said nothing. Then he gave a short, quiet laugh. "Well," he said, "I suppose I should stop asking whether this is authorized." He looked ahead again. "And start asking how far you intend to go." The commander smiled. "Just enough." "As far as they let us," he replied, "and a little farther than they expect." They stopped near a forward command post just off the road. Maps were spread across the hood of a truck, weighed down with helmets and folders. Runners came and went, passing short, efficient messages. No one looked surprised to see Eisenhower there. That, more than anything, stayed with him. He listened as reports came in. Distances covered, bridges secured, resistance lighter than expected. Each update confirmed what he had already seen with his own eyes. This advance wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated push. Eisenhower stepped aside with the muddy commander. "I'll need this documented," he said. "Every mile, every unit." "Yes, sir," the commander replied. "It's already being done." Eisenhower raised an eyebrow. "Already?" The commander nodded. "We assumed you'd ask." That earned another quiet pause. Eisenhower looked around at the organized movement, the calm urgency, the way officers spoke without raising their voices. This wasn't defiance. It was confidence built on preparation. "Some people at headquarters won't like this," Eisenhower said. "They usually don't," the commander answered. "At first," Eisenhower exhaled slowly. "Very well," he said. "I'll take responsibility for what's already happened." The commander met his eyes. "And for what happens next?" Eisenhower didn't answer right away. He looked east toward the road that was already disappearing under moving columns. "Let's see how far this momentum carries," he said finally. "Then we'll decide." The commander gave a small nod. Outside, engines started again. The advance resumed, quietly, steadily, while a decision larger than any single order waited just ahead. The radio crackled before the sun had fully burned through the clouds. Messages came in clipped bursts. Questions first, then concerns, then something closer to disbelief. Distances didn't line up. Timelines didn't match expectations. Reports were arriving faster than anyone had planned for. Eisenhower listened without interrupting. He stood just outside the command post, hands in his pockets, eyes on the road where vehicles continued to pass in steady intervals. The advance hadn't slowed. If anything, it felt smoother now, like a machine settling into its rhythm. An aide approached carefully. "Sir," he said, lowering his voice, "Headquarters wants clarification. They're asking whether the forward units have exceeded their limits." Eisenhower nodded once. "And what did you tell them?" "That you're reviewing the situation personally." "That will buy us time," Eisenhower said. He turned back toward the muddy commander, who was speaking quietly with his staff. There was no tension in his movements, no sign that the questions from above had changed anything on the ground. Eisenhower waited until the commander finished, then stepped closer. "They're asking hard questions," Eisenhower said, "and they'll keep asking." The commander nodded. "They should. And if they order a pause, then we'll explain what pausing would cost," the commander replied. Clearly, Eisenhower studied him for a moment. "You're putting me in an uncomfortable position." The commander met his gaze, respectful but steady. "Yes, sir," he said, "but not an unfamiliar one." Eisenhower allowed himself a brief smile. "No," he admitted, "not unfamiliar at all." Another radio message crackled, more urgent this time. Eisenhower took a breath, then spoke firmly into the handset. "Continue monitoring," he said. "We'll provide a full report shortly." He handed the radio back and looked down the road once more. Whatever decision came next wouldn't be made on a map. It would be made by momentum already moving forward. The message from headquarters came just before dusk. Not an order, a confirmation. Eisenhower read it once, then folded the paper carefully and placed it back into his pocket. Around him, the advance continued exactly as it had all day. Steady, disciplined, unstoppable. He walked toward the muddy commander, who was watching the road with the same calm focus as before. "It's approved," Eisenhower said simply. The commander didn't celebrate. He didn't smile. He just nodded. "That will make things easier," he replied. Eisenhower studied him for a moment longer, then shook his head with quiet disbelief. "You know," he said, "when I arrived this morning, I thought I was correcting a situation." He gestured toward the road, the columns disappearing into the distance. "Turns out, I was just catching up to it." The commander finally allowed a small smile. "That happens sometimes, sir." Eisenhower extended his hand. This time, the salute came first, sharp, precise, unmistakable. "Well," Eisenhower said, gripping the hand firmly, "I won't forget this." Later, as he climbed back into his jeep, an aide leaned closer. "Sir," the aide asked carefully, "did you recognize him right away?" Eisenhower looked back one last time at the muddy figure standing where the road met the horizon. He exhaled softly. "No," he said, "but now I understand." The jeep pulled away. Behind it, the advance continued, already beyond the maps, beyond expectations, and far beyond the moment when anyone needed to ask, "Sir, are you sure?"